morning, everybody. Good afternoon, depending on when you're watching this. I just wanted to give you a little more in-depth information about the family systems theory and ecological systems theory, so that you know kind of what to expect and what you really should be working on and doing. I've had a few questions here and there, so I think I want to get a little more specific for you. So looking at the family systems theory notes, and feel free to just scroll and forward through to whatever points you need. If you're really understanding stuff, you don't need to listen to like the whole videos if you really feel confident about it. If you're not sure, you might want to look and make sure you're filling it out correctly too. But on here for the family system notes, you just have the definitions. So when we're looking at, like, we have subsystems, cluster within families, and that talks about like what are the dynamics between family clusters, who aligns, who gets left out. So for this piece, like this, I would just put that, oh no, you just got it already, a cluster within families, and that would be fine. You would just put that. Real world example with your family, like this, I would think of an example with mine. So for my family, like we kind of have a subsystem of like my mom, my sister, and myself. And we just spend more time together, especially like just us three, than like my stepdad and my brother and like her family. So that I would say would be my subsystem within my family. So myself, my mom, and my sister. So you can kind of think of like, are there people in your family that kind of do that and hang out more, that kind of thing. Okay, so that's how you're filling that piece out. So then if I go roles, repetitive patterns family members play out within each other. Maybe it's who has what job in a family or different roles people have. All of those kind of play into it. So when you're looking at that, like I could put my role, I could put the definition, and then I could put maybe like what are some of my roles in the family. I have a lot. I'm a single parent, so I could put like a ton in there. But you might have more different defined roles, like who's in charge of mowing the lawn, if you have one, or who's in charge of cooking. Maybe someone else does the dishes. It could be that kind of stuff. It also is maybe caretaking of children, or maybe different times with it. So all kinds of options. Next, looking at family structures, it's the invisible set of rules that govern family transactions. So, like, what are the things kind of that you would have to explain to outsiders to know how to behave kind of in your house? Like, would it be that if you want to be heard, you got to be really loud? Would it be like you need to take your shoes off when you come in the house? It could be, we always say please and thank you. It's not necessarily that it's talked about, but it's just there. Okay. Okay, and then we have family transactions. So we have, our subsystems are there. Where are my transactions? Yeah. And governing their transactions. So that's the family members' behavior toward each other. So we have, the structure, the visible rules, and then the transactions are those behaviors. So they're just broken up a little bit more, if that makes sense. Family subsystems, that's really just kind of like we talked about. As parents, are they having appropriate functions and tasks? What are they kind of doing? Is it healthy? That's kind of what I'm asking more now. What are their functions for parents? Does the children what are the kids' functions? Maybe it's going to school. Maybe it's earning money for the family. What is that? And looking at family boundaries, I thought I had this changed, but I didn't. Family transactions, when we're looking at, those are all on there. And then looking at the boundaries a little bit later. So realigning, sorry about that. Realigning is just making sure stuff like lines up if you need to. So if things aren't healthy, how do you realign it so that it is healthy? So realigning basically just means restructuring to make it functional, if that makes sense, and how you could do that in your family. And feel free, if you can think of in some of these things, you could think of an uncle or a cousin, or a different subset of farther out family too. But you can also think of individual stuff. Sometimes I have to think and realign. No, my daughter's actually 13 now. She can do more of this stuff on her own. So I can realign those roles, and a lot of times we do that as children get older. Okay, finally on the boundaries. So a definition is talking about the different boundaries that have to be for each member, and then this goes into it more. So it shows where one thing ends and another begins. And boundaries in a relationship help each person figure out where one person ends and the other begins. And so, like, what are you comfortable with, and showing how you want to actually others to treat you. It's really important to have closeness within relationships, but also remain an individual self. And like, what are your deal breakers? And really stick with those. And so, what does that look like for you? And goal for healthy families: align your family boundaries and roles to be adaptive for all family members, so that everybody feels supported and feels healthy in those roles. And then we have healthy boundaries, and what that looks like. It's continued. Enmeshed means it's like the family is so really together, more so than is healthy. And then the other side is this disengaged, and that means like everybody's just really on their own, and there's not really any of that connectedness. And then the balance is in between, meaning there's this connectedness, but there's also an individuality that goes with that. And everybody's kind of like, they're close, but they have their separate lives, separate interests in some ways too, and everybody respects each other's boundaries. And then there's a video for you to watch. There's a link here. There's a link in your assignment also. And then you just watch the link and then answer the questions on here. Please give me detailed stuff. Don't do really short things. Okay? So that's your family systems, kind of big information. And then I just have more information about setting boundaries. I think is so helpful. Normally in class we do some other work with this, and we do some more discussions. This is just part of what's in your reflection. Looking at realigning a little bit more, and then normally we have like finishing exit ticket work. But you're pretty much done after that one point. Okay, so that's your family systems. And then we're going to go on to your ecological systems now. And so you go to this point, and you have ecological systems theory. You're going to fill in who you believe you are in the tree below. So add your roots, your trunks, your branches, and leaves. See the notes to fill this out. So I have the information to fill in here. So meaning you don't do anything, but this is telling you like what to do in your information. So the roots themselves are like the parts that people don't see from looking at you, but still make you a part of what you are. They're kind of like a big piece of the foundation of that. And that's kind of what you're going to fill in for those pieces. So first, though, is like, what is it? It's a theory developed by Yuri Brockenbrenner. Framework that consists of psychologists examine individual relationships with communities and within like all kinds of little subsets. And they identify 5 environmental systems for it. So our first thought is we're going to see like what makes you, and then we'll later bring that into like, okay, how does that fit with that theory? So that's why we're starting with this, and then we'll get back into it. And so this slide on here gives you tons of information too about how to think. So where you come from in your family, present day life, day-to-day activities, your abilities and skills, your hopes, your goals, important people in your life. Like tons of this stuff can go in there, and even more. So like if I'm looking at this, like my roots, parts that people don't see from looking at you, but part of make you you. Like this could be like maybe where you come from. Like where did you grow up? It could be like history, family history, your personal history. Like for example, I could put a root for me could be like that I'm a single parent and I'm divorced. Like that still really impacts my life and makes me who I am. It doesn't define me. Like these don't have to be things that are like, this is why you're the way you are or whatever, but it can be a big part of your life. It can be like good things and not so good things either way, depending on how you want to look at it. This could be like where I grew up. I grew up in North Dakota. Makes me a part of who I am. Kind of shows some growth that I've had. But can count for some different things. The trunk, these are things that people can see are a big part of who you are. This is the visible foundation of who you are. This could be, for my trunk, I could have that I'm female or a woman or feminine presenting. However I want to define that. And for some people, your visual representation might not match your internal. And so those could go, like if you consider yourself non-binary, then maybe that would be the roots, right? That's who you are and foundational, but maybe people can't see that. So it can really vary depending on like you individually. But the trunk can be way more than that. I'm just giving some examples. The branches are part of you that can be seen, but they're maybe not as foundational to you. And this is just your preference. Like maybe your visual, like if you're female presenting or a woman or a man or whatever, maybe that's not as big of a deal to you. It doesn't go in your trunk. Maybe you put it in the branches. And that's totally fine. Okay? So what is it that's still it makes you you. You can still see it, but not such a foundation. So maybe for me, this would be maybe I have siblings. So I have a sister and a brother. Okay, they're super important to me, and maybe I would put them in my trunk. I don't know. You just have to kind of decide where you think they belong. And then leaves, these are things that are easily seen and that can change over time really easily. So it's usually more the surface stuff. Like I could put my leaves, I have gray hair. I could be an accent. You can see it, but maybe you can change it. It could be, like I could change it. Like, right, I could dye my hair and it could be different. So it's more easily changed. Okay? Something that maybe I'd put in my roots. These can be like things that maybe you don't display. Like I absolutely love animals and I love cats. I could put that in my roots. Or maybe I'm like, you know what? I'm really out there about it. I wear like if I wear cat t-shirts, not all kinds of cat stuff, and displayed it all over, maybe that'd be a leaf. Okay, so you can see how it might interchange depending on how you interact with it. Okay, I'm hoping that's clear. So just kind of keep working at it. Don't stress out about exactly where you put stuff, because it can vary. Just kind of give me a little explanation. Okay, and then we're getting into the ecological systems theory. When you do this, watch the video, at least this first video. If you're still not understanding it, watch the second, and it just helps bring it into shape. And then I have like these visuals on here. There's another visual. It's talking about like you have the individual, you have your microsystem. This is a nice reference. It's like your family, school, church, if you practice that. Health services, all of those. And then your exosystem is like social services, industry, politics. And then the mesosystem is how everything interacts with each other within those systems. And the macro system is just attitudes, ideology of the culture within like the main areas and stuff that you live. So mesosystem, when you're looking at it, is like the interactions between your family, teacher, school. It's an interaction between the microsystem, basically. Okay? And then you're going to go to your assignment and you're going to analyze those. So then you're going to say, give me the definition for the individual, the microsystem, give definitions for each, and then you're going to tell me your examples. So like individual, that's just going to be like your sex. You can put gender if you would like, age, health, all of those, you put those in. Okay, so I would say female, age 45, my health is good. I could give examples, so I got migraines, I could give my mental health stuff, got anxiety, a few other things. You can put those in for examples. And then my microsystem, I would put my definition, and then I would talk about like my family. I would talk about my daughter, Kylie's 13, my sister, and I would be pointing out the people in my family that are really important. I could also, I have work instead of school, so I would point out maybe the people or different things that are important with that. If you go to church, you could do that. Peers, my friends, health services, I could put like where I go, if I go there. Mesosystem is how they interact. So, like for mesosystem, I could say, my sister and my work and friends kind of all intertwined because my sister works in the same district and is also like knows my friends that work here, and I could, put some discussions of how those can like mesh and interact and explain that. The exosystem is like, this could be more of like social initiatives, mass media, local politics, kind of the things that are more in the community base, but broader. So like if this, I could talk about politics, like I could say, if I'm involved in this kind of politics piece, and this is how I interact with that, and maybe how it interacts with other areas of my life as well. That's just one piece. You could also do like social services would be like for people that go to the food shelf, and maybe if you volunteer at the food shelf, that would be one. If you get food from there, prices are really expensive with food right now. A lot of people are having to do that haven't even before. Like there's all of those pieces that go into it. Mass media, that's like the news. How are we interacting with the news around us and all of those kind of pieces. And then macro system is the whole big like United States culture, world culture, like all of those ideologies. When I think of macro system, I can think of politics, I can think of like racism, sexism, all of those isms can kind of go in there, which they definitely can also be in the exosystem. They can be in the microsystem. A lot of those things are, depending on where you're seeing it and what you particular or like feel it in the most. And you can put different examples of those things. You can put like, I'm paying my taxes in the macro system. That's a part of it, like the federal taxes and state taxes. There's all kinds of different pieces. It's kind of more of that stuff that's coming from out more. Okay? And then just talking about what parts are work best to support you and how, and then which parts do not support you as well. And then how could they support you better? Like what would have to change in order to get that better support? Okay? And then that's your end of like filling that piece out. So you can kind of just look at the notes and see if there's kind of any other things that you need. And that's it. So I'm hoping that these videos are helpful for you. Let me know if you find them helpful. If you don't, you can shoot me an email. You can always like move them. I know like this is like 16 minutes now. You don't have to watch the whole thing if you're understanding different parts. You should just kind of be able to scroll and kind of see what part I'm on in the screen that I'm sharing and hopefully find stuff that way as you go. So hope you have a great day. And again, email me or Google chat me, or you can shoot me a message on my Google Voice or call. Have a great day.